Well, we have actually said it before, maybe many times, but there are certain games still that folks just don't get to move on from, for many reasons. And I don't know, they just wait. Well, in my opinion, Jak and Daxter is one of those series. Even after all the years, it still sits in that strange space in gaming history where it feels like it was ahead of its time, but also left unfinished in a way that still bothers people. The original game had this pretty clean, bright, almost magical platforming identity. Then the series slowly shifted into something darker, louder, more chaotic with bigger guns, bigger worlds, and a much heavier tone as well. And well, ever since then, fans have been asking the same quiet question in different ways. What would Jak and Daxter look like if it came back today? Not as a remaster, not as a nostalgic side project, but a full modern AAA return. And now, well, over the last year or so, that question has started to feel less like just wishes and more like something actually floating around the industry again. Because while nothing is officially confirmed, there has been steady noise around Sony revisiting old PlayStation franchises. Job listings, internal discussions, and general industry movement toward legacy IP revival have all kept Jak and Daxter in that specific conversation. And when you line that up with how successful nostalgic revivals have been in the gaming industry recently, it becomes easy to understand why people think this series might finally be next. But the interesting part is not just that a new game might exist, it's what kind of game it could be. Because Jak and Daxter has always been split between identities. The early era was colorful, platform heavy, almost peaceful in tone despite the adventure. Then the later games leaned into darker storytelling, more mature themes, guns, vehicles, and a kind of chaotic energy that completely changed the feel of the series. A modern reboot would have to decide something important, which is, does it go back to the roots, or does it evolve everything into something new entirely? And the way people talk about it online right now, it feels like most fans actually want a balance between both of those. A world that still feels alive, colorful, and full of platforming creativity, but with modern depth, cinematic storytelling, and more fluid combat systems, something that respects the original tone while still feeling like a 2026 or 2027 release, not a nostalgia trap. And honestly, that balance is exactly what makes this hypothetical project so freaking exciting right now. Because the original Jak and Daxter, the Prosecutor Legacy, was just built on exploration and movement. You weren't just running through levels, you were flowing through them. Jumping, gliding, collecting, discovering hidden areas, and slowly piecing together a world that felt connected instead of segmented per se. Here's the thing, modern hardware could expand that idea in a huge way. Imagine a seamless open world version of that original map design philosophy. No loading between hubs, no disconnected zones, or just a fully continuous world where exploration feels natural and constant. I don't know, forests that stretch into deserts, mountains that just lead into ancient ruins, with cities built on top of forgotten prosecutor technology. That alone, you see, would completely change how the game feels. But then there's also the darker side of Jak. Because if there's one thing the series became known for later on, it was transformation. Not just story-wise, but mechanically. See, Dark Jak, Light Jak, combat systems that became more aggressive and weapon-focused. A tone that shifted from adventure to rebellion. Now, here's the thing, a modern version could lean into that dual identity more intentionally. Jak as a character could be built around two states of gameplay. One focused on fluid platforming and traversal, almost meditative in movement. The other one focused on combat transformation, where abilities become more destructive, faster, heavier. That's right, that kind of system would give the game rhythm. Calm exploration, followed by sudden bursts of chaos. And that contrast is something modern action games handle extremely well when done right. Daxter is another major piece of the puzzle, of course, because while Jak often carries the seriousness of the story, Daxter brings personality, humor, timing, reaction. In a modern game, that dynamic could be expanded through more reactive dialogue systems and environmental commentary, and even gameplay assistance mechanics where Daxter reacts to situations in real time. Not overwhelming, just present enough to keep the world feeling alive. And that matters more than people actually think in a game like this, because without that personality, Jak and Daxter risks becoming just another fantasy action game. What made it different was its identity. The world always felt slightly strange, slightly magical, slightly broken underneath the surface. Prosecutor runes hinting at a lost civilization maybe. Echo energy shaping both gameplay and environment. And maybe a world that felt ancient even when it was bright and colorful. See, a modern engine like Unreal Engine 5 or a heavy upgraded system could take that environmental storytelling to another level. Lighting effects could alone completely change how, Echo was perceived visually. Blue Echo flowing through ancient structures, red Echo pulsing through corrupted zones, green Echo interacting with nature in subtle living ways. That's right, that kind of visual feedback could make the world feel reactive instead of static. And that's where a new Jak and Daxter game could really stand out, because it wouldn't just be about movement or the combat. It would be about how the world responds to you. Here's the thing, the later games already experimented heavily with shooting mechanics, vehicle combat and melee hybrid systems. A modern entry we think could refine all of that into a smoother, more responsive system. Less donkey interactions, more fluid chaining between movements and combat, enemies designed to react to both platforming and combat styles instead of just being separated into different gameplay modes. That would keep the energy high without losing control. And then there's traversal, which is arguably the most important part, because Jak and Daxter is at its best when movement feels fast, natural and satisfying. Running across rooftops, jumping between ruins, gliding, using echo, all of that could become incredibly smooth with modern animation systems. Traversal is where this game could truly shine if it handled correctly, because if movement feels good, everything else becomes more enjoyable. And that's the core of Jak and Daxter's identity. Right now, there is no official confirmation of a new game. Either it's gone forever, or it's waiting for the right moment to come back. And Jak and Daxter doesn't feel like a forgotten series right now, it feels like a paused one. A franchise waiting for technology, timing, and creative direction to align again. Because if you think about it, Jak and Daxter is everything a modern AAA platform action game needs. A strong identity, a flexible world, a history of experimentation. The hardest part isn't figuring out what the game should be, I think it's choosing what version of that legacy to bring forward. And if Sony and the original creators ever decide the timing is right, a new Jak and Daxter game wouldn't just be a return, it'll be a reintroduction to a world that never really stopped being interesting, just waiting for someone to open the door again.